Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers get a potentially season-altering win in Indiana, while Anthony Davis was snubbed for the All-Star team. That's all next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to watch the show. The channel up around 11,000 subscribers, constantly talking to each other, constantly talking to us. Really love the interaction. It's a great place to hang out with other Lakers fans and, of course, see some great content and make another Locked On podcast your second listen of every day, or check them out on their respective YouTube channel. I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll get to the All-Star nods before the end of the show, and if we have time, even a potentially interesting blockbuster type trade that was thrown out by ESPN's Bobby Marks that we'll try to take apart. But before that, Andy, I mentioned this in the cold open. This is a potentially season-altering win that the Lakers get in Indiana, 112-111 on Thursday night. And I don't think it's overstating it, because this was not a game that they really had any business winning, and they managed to do it, which is something that good teams do, which is, I guess, maybe why the Lakers haven't done it as much over the course of the year. I'm not sure, but they did it on Thursday.
To put in perspective just how improbable this win seemed, and the idea that this was not a win that they necessarily deserved, although, you know, if you play the best down the stretch of the two teams, I guess in that respect you deserve the win. They did not get their first lead in this game until the final 2:28 in the fourth quarter. They did not have a lead. And that initial lead, Brian, they held on as long as Indiana's next possession.
It didn't last long. It was fleeting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still processing exactly how this happened, because the Lakers, for the first three-ish quarters of this game, played sloppy. Mm-hmm. They played with often a lack of urgency. Their transition defense, even by their standards, was god-awful. Their ability to mark various pacers around the three-point line was awful. Like, Indiana was both hot and being given practice looks.
Right. They were open. It's not just like they were like nailing every. There have been games where teams are just like, you know, like throwing the ball over their shoulder and it goes in. It's like, okay, what do you do? Like, yeah, India was, like you said, they were left open for some really shameful three-pointers.
Yeah. And honestly, watching a lot of this game, I was like, do they want to be here? Like, they did not, especially after that big win against the Knicks, which seemed really, and, you know, justifiably energizing for this team. I'm watching them through a lot of this game in Indiana going like, they're just going through the motions in a weird way. Like, even you and I were texting during the game, for the first three-ish quarters of this, LeBron and AD, their numbers were both impressive. If you were just looking at the stats, I didn't think either one of them was playing all that great.
They were good. They were doing it, but like the mistakes, particularly, and I thought AD was better than LeBron for most of the game. And we'll get to this because like both of those guys, and it's particularly Anthony Davis, did some stuff down the stretch where like great players come up with great plays when they are badly needed. And Davis particularly. But you're right. You look at the final box score, and LeBron had 26, 7, and 7, and he was 11 of 19 from the floor. He had 3 turnovers, so nothing crazy there. But it could have been more. It could have been more. It was a sloppy game. It didn't have some snap, and like And then you look at AD, 13 of 27 from the floor, 14 rebounds, a steal, 2 blocks, the second of which was very important. But like, you start digging into this box score a little bit, and the Lakers had 6 3-pointers. They made 6 3-pointers on Thursday night. You know how hard it is to win a game in the NBA in 2023, the year of our Lord, with 6 3-pointers? It ain't easy. They missed 8 free throws in the fourth quarter.
9.
8.
Oh, 8 in the fourth. Yes, you're correct.
8 in the fourth. They missed, and they actually, up until that point had been shooting the ball pretty well from the free throw line. It looks like they only missed 9 on the game. They missed 8 in the fourth quarter by itself. Indiana had 16 3-pointers. They were minus 30 from the 3-point line. And overall, Indiana shot 45 at 93, so just under 50% from the game. Like, you start looking around, and there's very little redeeming in this box score. You wonder how they did it. The turnover battle was relatively even, 16-13. I think the only thing where you can look at it and say the Lakers did a great job, and this is probably what ultimately kept them in the game, was the fact that they only gave up 6. They only allowed 6 free throws in the entire game. They sent Indiana to the line 6 times. So they defended without fouling, particularly in the fourth quarter where they only gave up 15 points.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned how the Lakers only had 6 3-pointers to Indiana's 16. They also had 31 free throw attempts to Indiana's 6. Mm-hmm. So even though the Lakers on balance were pretty lousy at the line, they shot 71% for the game. For the first 3 quarters, they actually were pretty good at the line. So you combine that with their defense in the last 3 minutes really cranking up. Like they the last 3 or 4 minutes, they were terrific defensively.
They were down 15 in this game. So they did what this team does. They clawed and they stayed in it and they didn't give up. And I think when they recognized that this was a winnable game for them, particularly if they could just figure out a way to put a body and stop Halliburton as much as anything. He is so good.
Miles Turner had a terrific game. This felt like him, like the revenge game for not trading for him, which led to a really nice extension where you're like, I don't even know what the hell you're mad at us about. But he played really, really well. It's funny, actually. I tweeted this out at Cam Brothers during the game. Before the season started, I thought Turner made absolutely no sense for Indiana's timeline, even knowing how good Tyrese Halliburton clearly is, just because I wasn't as familiar with some of the other pieces around them. I thought at 26, Turner might just be too old for this. But once you see guys like Mathurin, Nebhart, and Naismith, and some, like, you're like, you know what? It actually makes a little more sense now. Like they've got something solid, if nothing else, they're building with the Pacers.
Yeah, and that trade, the Indiana Sacramento trade, which is actually relevant to the conversation we're going to have, because it's probably Domantas Sabonis that took the spot that theoretically could have gone to Anthony Davis in the Western Conference front court.
Actually, I think it's Jaren Jackson Jr.
who you think so? Either one of them.
Sabonis is more of a cut and dry all-star. I think
that's true. It could be. I was looking at a lot of the sort of pre-All-Star kind of predictions had Davis in over Sabonis, but we'll get into all of this, as the show goes on. That's actually one of the rare blockbuster sort of trades that everyone's happy with. Indiana loves the Halliburton situation, and obviously Sacramento with Sabonis has been just thrilled with how this is turning out. So
I was going to say, even if you think the Pacers won that deal, just because Halliburton is the younger player, he's at a position that's more valuable in the league, at least the current culture of this league. It's hard to say Sacramento lost. I think just Indiana won more.
But let's talk about we'll get into this Davis stuff, because I think a lot of Lakers fans are probably annoyed that he didn't make the team. So we'll talk about whether or not he deserved to, and whether or not ultimately he's better off just getting the rest. So we'll do that. But first, Andy, Darvin Ham substituted Russell Westbrook in for the final 5 minutes of the game. He was on the bench and he said, "Russ, get in there." At which point I am fairly sure that most diehard Laker fans thought they were being trolled by Ham intentionally, had some really interesting comments as to why he did it after the game. We'll tell you what the results were and what Darvin said next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, success in 2023 all depends on your team members. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by using their targeting tools to match open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experience to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn goes beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, your company, and their 875 million member profiles to land the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants all in one platform. And that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. And you want to get a start on your 2023 fiscal success now. And that makes this a critical time. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the most qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so we mentioned the value for this game for the Lakers really can't be overstated in terms of what it does in the standings, what it does for them. You lose this game, you're 24-29 going into Saturday's game against New Orleans, which, by the way, moved up to 3:00 Pacific.
Yes, it is.
You can watch it on Spectrum Sportsnet if you're in LA. They're moving stuff around with those games, but the TV schedule for where you can watch it stays the same. If you're the Lakers now, you have a chance to finish this road trip, this very difficult road trip, which started off on just a horrible note with the Boston game, coming back to town 2 games under 500, which is better than it was when you left. That is a really big deal. And you look at the standings, the Pelicans lost again on Thursday. Dallas beat them. Obviously, Lakers chasing both of those teams, but the first team you got to jump over is the Pelicans. Their free fall continues. The Lakers get them on Saturday. Denver looks like they're going to beat Golden State, so the Lakers could gain a game on them. Too early to call the Clippers game. But the point being here, Andy, the Western Conference still super duper bunched up. And Anthony Davis said after the game, this was a big win because we want to get out of the play-in. We want to be one of the top 6 teams. And while from a consistency standpoint, I think some people might laugh at that. From a standing standpoint, you don't. The Lakers still have a great chance to get into the top 6. They will go into Friday. Looks like 2.5 games behind Minnesota in the 6th spot.
And 2.5 games behind, I think it's Dallas for the 5 spot.
Dallas, Brian, the only reason I say Dallas, I think, going to move up. You gain a half game unless that's already been. But they're right there with all of those teams. The Clippers are only a game ahead of those guys. So, it's still very tight, and everything up to about the 3 seed is still worth talking about, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, as much as the landscape around the league has not cooperated for the Lakers in terms of, I think, the trades they clearly thought would be available during the offseason, which is why they decided to wait until the season was well underway to make a deal, other than the THT for Patrick
Can't know what this team is until Trevor Ariza is back, Andy.
But the West has been insanely cooperative. Like, this team has not been above 500 a day of this season. Not a day, other than, I guess, 0-0 when the season first began.
That's not above. That's that's not above.
Yeah, I guess that is the closest this team has ever been to above 500. 0-0 first game of the season. They're still in the mix. And if you want to say that they've got an uphill battle, I'm not going to argue against you. They do. They have less margin for error than some of these other teams. There are teams like, for example, the Wolves are all of a sudden starting to play much better. They're starting, other than Cat, they've got pretty much all their guys back and healthy, and there's D'Angelo Russell sneakily having a pretty good year.
Yeah, they're figuring it out.
Yeah, they look better. OKC, I don't think is going to go away. Like Portland never quite dies. Like they've got their work cut out for them. But in any other season, for all intents and purposes, it would be done. Like we as hosts would be trying to talk you into continually listening to us and watching us, but we would know we were living a lie. Right now, we're not lying to you. Like,
no,
this
we're
is
not.
actually a live possibility.
And I think people might have thought it was disappearing when Ham subs in Russell Westbrook for the final 5 minutes of the game. It turned out fine. And
by the way, it should be noted, part of the dreaded 3-guard lineup.
Yes, he was out there with Dennis Schroeder and Patrick Beverley. The not just, as you've made very clear to me, Andy, it's not just a 3-guard lineup; it's that one. And although I do have some data on that 3-guard lineup that might surprise people, so I have to say, first of all, it didn't hurt anything. Pat Beverley deserved to be on the floor for that, for the end of that game. Westbrook came in for Hachimura. And I think what Darvin wanted, as he said, was, he thought Russ was locked in, 2 of 16 from the floor. So the shooting wasn't there, obviously. But he was generally playing downhill, had 10 assists, and I think he liked his defensive energy. Hachimura, was okay, I thought, in this game. It was okay. But I think Darvin was looking for a lot of what he liked, and he actually called it, based on what he had seen up to that point from Westbrook, a no-brainer after the game. A no-brainer to put Russ in. What was your reaction when he called reinserting Russell Westbrook a no-brainer?
Okay, look, to be fair to Darvin, they won the game. And Russ was actually in the middle of Indiana's final play. Buddy Hield ended up double-teamed in the corner. Russ and Dennis Schroeder, creating this incredibly awkward missed shot for
it was a really great recovery. First, initially from Schroeder. Nebhard dumped the ball off to Buddy Hield for the final play. When he turned, I think Hield thought he was going to have a clean look, and Schroeder was right there.
Yeah. Do I think it was a no-brainer? No, a no-brainer feels a bit of a stretch. Like,
it was a brainer. It was definitely a brainer.
But Russ down the stretch, at minimum, I don't think really did any harm. It's a tightrope that Darvin's gonna walk with Russ, or I think sometimes forces himself to walk, wants to walk. Darvin Ham clearly both has the respect for Russell Westbrook, and also, I think, the glass half full vision of what the team can look like in these moments with Russell Westbrook.
He sees Russ like our parents see us, I think.
Yeah. And look, we have pushed that glass half full version of us to, just the limits. But I talked about this after the game against the Knicks, where Russell Westbrook was the best Laker in overtime. Like, period. He was. And this was coming off a fourth quarter where he might have been the worst Laker on the floor. When Russ wants to play under control and makes a point of it, he can be a valuable part of crunch time, or if nothing else, viable. If he chooses not to, he can be just a tornado of destruction. It's really up to him, and then it's up to Darvin to make the right call.
And it is hard with any of these guys. And, Russ is, I guess, a high-level role player. As frustrating as he can be, he's still, he's not Troy Brown. He's not, some of the other guys that you might look at on the roster. There are players, when they are having bad games, that you still put back in the game. And I think for a lot of people, it's that threshold with Russ that is the dividing line. It's we get Russ is going to play, but once you decide, he's having an off night, then you take him out and you leave him out. Darvin doesn't have the same line there. What I do think is interesting about this lineup, and people, I think, at this point understand, I am probably a little bit more sympathetic to Darvin. I don't think he does a great job staggering LeBron and AD so that one of them is on the floor as much as one of them needs to be on the floor. I don't love some of the lineup decisions that Ham has made. I am more sympathetic because I don't love the roster construction, and I think most of the players available to him are imperfect. I looked it up. That threesome, that three-guard group over the last 10 games has a net rating of almost +8. So and I was surprised. I was surprised that it was that good.
Too. I'd be very curious to see their fourth quarter net rating.
Sure. But I mean, the whole
quarter,
team's fourth quarter. There is no 5-man combination on the Lakers.
No, but
that looks good in that way. But he is. I was very surprised to see that it was that high, and that's in 63 minutes, so it's not nothing over the, it's like probably the eighth.
I can tell you right now, everybody listening and watching this podcast will agree with you. 63 minutes is not nothing of that group.
It's about the
more than enough. They've seen more than enough.
Yeah. It's about the 12th or 13th most, of any 3-person grouping over the last 10 games. So
they don't believe you that it's that low.
Yeah. So it hasn't been that bad. At least, from an analytics standpoint, that's just one measurement. At least by that one, it hasn't killed them. Let's talk about Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis did not make the All-Star team on a night where he may have redirected almost single-handedly in the last minute of the game, the Lakers season. So let's do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The Super Bowl is approaching, and we are excited, stoked out of our minds about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they are the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, it's even better. Listen up. I'll explain why. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy, and new customers join today. Get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line to the point spreads, player props. Plus, you can combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay, all on an app that's safe, secure, easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So I mentioned at the top of the show, Andy, the Lakers, obviously we both got deep into this. This was not a game that it looked like they were going to win. It was not a game that looked like they deserved to win. And yet they figured out a win, mostly on a way to win, mostly on the defensive end in the final quarter. Anthony Davis and LeBron James had perfectly respectable stat lines. This was not, if you were watching the type of AD performance that had you jumping out of your chair. It was not the LeBron performance that did it, but LeBron hit a massive 3-pointer down the stretch. One that the Lakers badly needed. And when I say that this was not a game that had you jumping out of your chair for AD, I know this because the final sequence for AD had me jumping out of my chair, and I noticed that I hadn't done it yet. He hit a terrifyingly difficult turnover shot over Miles Turner, a fadeaway in the lane. This after Turner had blocked him, a couple minutes before that, and then turned around as Halliburton was trying to get the lead back, trailed him down the lane, and swatted the bleep out of Halliburton's attempt to try to score, keeping the ball in play, by the way. That was a stunningly good sequence. It was an all-NBA sequence, and it was a sequence that may have helped save this season for the Lakers.
We've talked about it all season. When AD plays like the best version of himself, it feels like there's a lot possible for this team. The Lakers have a very high bar for what they need from AD. Like, just run-of-the-mill good Anthony Davis, that ain't enough. Like, they need special Anthony Davis. And a lot of this game, like we talked about, AD was not special. Last couple minutes, and certainly that last sequence, he was beyond special. He was otherworldly in that one sequence on both ends. He was as good on those two possessions as anybody was in two possessions in this game.
Yeah, and I don't think there are a lot of players in the league that could have completed that sequence. Again, Miles Turner had just swatted Davis in a play that made you think to yourself, man, it would be cool if they were playing together. And then, this was on a degree of difficulty. Turner defended the heck out of that play. On a 1 to 10 scale degree of difficulty, this was probably a 10. He was leaning back like this, he was, and had to rainbow that ball over him. And then, as the Lakers demonstrated throughout that game, marking Tyrese Halliburton getting down the lane, not an easy thing to do. And Davis, he got him to alter the shot. Halliburton knew he was in trouble and then tried to kind of go reverse lefty or whatever it was. And he was like, get that out of here. That's what I love about Davis when he does that kind of stuff. It's like, and then he was John at the Indiana crowd. That is what makes players special, is on even nights where they are good but not great, in that moment where great is needed, they got it. It was really cool.
Yeah, he down the stretch defensively, but also it's worth noting just a couple minutes before we get to AD and the All-Star game, Patrick Beverley was sensational the last few minutes of this game. He made big plays on both ends of the floor. I thought he had a really good game, period. But the last couple minutes, you saw why, we had talked before about, because, Beverley missed that game against the Knicks with that knee, that all things being equal, we would have preferred that Darvin Ham continued that starting lineup of Dennis Schroeder, Troy Brown Jr., Rui, LeBron, AD. But we both thought he's going to go back to Patrick Beverley in the starting lineup, which he did. And we saw down the stretch, and really a lot of this game, why Darvin just loves Patrick Beverley. I mean, just the intensity that he plays with, and also, too, just what he's done last couple months, since a pretty rough start to the season. It's actually been pretty good. Patrick Beverley has been what they traded to.
As long as you just have to have the right level of expectations. I still know that, the offensive 3-point shooting has not been what consistently, but he is not. He was a flat negative at the beginning of the year. Like, he was actively harming you. Now I think there are times when I wish Ham might choose a different
3-point
player.
shooting the last couple months has been fun. It's been good.
And so, there are times when I wish Ham would choose a different player or a different combination or whatever. But I think, 34-year-old Pat Beverley's giving you he's a little like
more
Russ.
than THT would have, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. He's a little like Russ in the sense that the experience colors, I think, sometimes the perception and the results. There are times when you're like, that is awesome. Thursday's game in Indiana was a great example of that. Where we're like, this energy, like, you can really feel it, it's necessary, whatever. There are other times where it's too much and you feel like it's whatever. So, there are games when Russ is sort of, if you boil it down and you strip away knowing who it is, and he's not necessarily bad, but just something about the energy, you notice the bad. And then there are other times when Russ is just bad. I'm not trying to, but Beverley has a little bit of that in him in terms of how you watch him.
Yeah. He noted after the game.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Really quick. He noted after the game, by the way, that he wanted the Halliburton assignment because he had heard from someone else, it seemed like, that Halliburton did an interview a while back where he mentioned Patrick Beverley, and Patrick Beverley found that disrespectful. So he wanted the assignment. And then after letting us know that, he reminded everyone, subscribe to the podcast.
Do you think that AD got snubbed? I mean, whether you think Sabonis took his spot, whether you think it was Jaren Jackson Jr., do you have a problem with AD not getting in for either one of those guys?
No, I don't want him in the game. I want him to rest. Darvin Ham said afterward, he seemed to not know that AD didn't make the team, but he was like, whatever, he gets the rest. That's how I feel about it. I think if anybody constituted a snub, because the guys who got in ahead of him were Paul George, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jaren Jackson Jr., Damian Lillard, Lauri Markkanen, John Morant, Domantas Sabonis. I think Sabonis, Morant, Markkanen, Lillard, SGA clearly should be in. And I would say clearly should be in ahead of AD. The only ones you could maybe make an argument, Paul George, just because of some injuries, although when George's been available, he's been pretty good.
Right. And the position makes it. He probably kept somebody else off the team, not Anthony Davis.
I think it's Jaren Jackson Jr. that ultimately is the one. Oh, my niece is adorable. I think that's ultimately who kept him out. And whatever, I'm fine with it. Like, I bet Memphis would prefer that Jaren Jackson Jr. also rests during the All-Star weekend. He's missed a fair amount of games.
I mean, obviously on performance, Anthony Davis is an all-star. I don't think there's any question about that, this season with what he's been doing, on a game where you were like, a little bit. He still put up 31, 14 and had those, two huge moments down the stretch. He's averaging 27 points a game, almost 12 rebounds, 2 blocks a game, a steal and a half, shooting 58% from the floor. Those are obviously all-star numbers. The only thing when he didn't make it, my initial thought was, hasn't played enough games. Like it's fair. Like he has not played. And granted, I did not realize Jackson made the team and he did, and I thought it was sort of Sabonis.
Jackson has played more games, but he's missed a decent chunk. He has played more than
right. He's played 35. And so when I saw Jackson, I was like, but the flip side of that is, Jackson is a leading candidate to win DPOY this year. So
to me, if anybody really
got he's on his second best team in the Western Conference.
I think if anybody really got snubbed in terms of both performance and availability, it would probably be De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
Like he's been very good and Sacramento's been very good and De'Aaron Fox has been very available. Again, I don't care. I'm glad. I want AD to get the rest. I wish.
All right. Grace, you want to say goodbye to everyone?
Bye.
Okay. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to see the show and periodically my daughter and participate with a great Lakers community. Appreciate all the support we're getting there. Huge game for the Lakers on Saturday against a slumping New Orleans team. Get those guys while they are down. Come home. 2 games under 500. Let LeBron pass Kareem at some point next week. Could be a fun week. Thanks everybody for joining the show. We'll see you next time.